All right, good afternoon. Welcome back here to Trader Minute. Great to have you aboard. Quite the opposite day to what yesterday was, where yesterday, we saw the markets open higher and, push up a little bit in the morning and then pretty much sell off the rest of the day. And they kind of stabilized about this time. At some lower lows for the week. Now, today we see kind of the opposite. We see the market opening weak and just getting the opposite reaction, that upside reaction here to put it up about 15 points. And it's trying to plateau around this level right here. We've seen a little bit of sell pressure come in, but that's been pretty balanced. And you can see what this week looks like in terms of a high and a low. This week's high, and then from the time the market opened, right, the low is, during market trading hours right here. So in the midst of chop, we are actually seeing the chop tighten and get a little more compressed. I do think there's a strong potential of some breakout should we have a catalyst. But without a catalyst, I don't see it happening. And so far, we don't have a catalyst. And I know, yes, there's news, right? But there's not a major catalyst out there. You look at the stocks that got hit the hardest yesterday, right? The Bank of Americas, for instance, hit hard yesterday, lagged, okay, going to go down, gaps down this morning, and whoop, right back up. Big old bullish engulfing after a big old bearish engulfing yesterday. And in these chop periods, you go back and look at chop times, for these types of stocks, it's just not uncommon action, nor is it significant action to the next move without a catalyst. And so I look at today and I go, okay, no real catalyst. We pretty much have the same thing we had yesterday, just reversed, right? And yesterday didn't see any bearish signals come in. Yeah, we had some downside crossovers with things like Whirlpool, but they're not downside triggers because their probability of moving two average true ranges is very limited right here. And if you look at Whirlpool today, it's chopping back up. So today we have Disney on the watch list with the 3-7 crossover. But the consolidation risk or the lack of potential, maybe I ought to word it that way, the lack of potential to hit a two average true range move is very similar to what it was right back here. And it was a nice kind of 3-7 crossover for Disney. I want it in, for the challenge. It's going to go. But what does the algo say? It says, look, the chance of moving two average true ranges is very limited. And while we saw an uptick, we did not see a move of two average true ranges. And so I can't argue being a buyer of something like a Disney today. Just using a stop on today's low is where I would go here with that. But as things sit, there are no new signals here on the board. But I do want to go through the watch list here, with you today. As, it's been a while since we've gone through each and every stock. And I know things are caught up in the market and what is the market doing and how is the market doing and all of that. But it's one where, individual stocks, triggering are really what we need for the challenge. And so let's go take a look at things that are close and things that are just, there's no shot. There's just no shot. Alcoa is one of those where there's no shot. Now, Alcoa, this one's going off the watch list for the next challenge just simply because the options, they're just not tradable anymore. So I don't really, look too much at that. American Airlines, this is one where, we talked about it on this reversal day. This is a nasty, ugly reversal, and we didn't get a bearish trigger because it was coming off of a high. Right, but it has just been an absolute free fall here. And today, nice little bullish engulfing on it. But the chance of this triggering bullish or bearish in the next couple of weeks or even the remainder of this challenge, very slim given its position here in the depth of that trend. Now, Apple is a really interesting one, and this is one that could go either way. It could go bullish, could go bearish. We saw a downside 3-7 crossover come in on it on Friday, but it did not trigger bearish. And why I say it could go either way is we have a lower high, we have lower highs and lower lows coming into play after this move that it made here in August. So it could go either way. We have a Stoke 39.1 that's right smack in the middle. I personally, I'd love to play it to the upside. If it gave an upside signal, be more than willing to play it down. If it gave a downside signal here as well. But this is one that, has potential to trigger at any moment. One of the few that are like that on the watch list. A lot of things kind of look like Amazon here. They came off highs, so we never really got bearish signals on them. And, they put on a small downward trend. And, since then, they've just been chopping here all month. A few crossovers have come in, but not enough to give any sort of signal. So it's not really close there as far as triggering. Now Arconic had a 3-7 crossover to the upside yesterday, and it is one that this is also going to be removed from the watch list just because of the options. The spreads and the deltas on them are just nowhere near good enough to be able to trade right here, and so it's one that's going off. But even that said, we didn't get a trigger on it yesterday, so chances are still in that consolidation here. Now Boeing, this is one that came off of a low, right? Came off of a low right here, had the 3-7 crossover, so coming off of a new low, not going to trigger bullish. We see a nice kind of thrust higher. It's been pushed on down a little bit because of the market, rebounding back here today. This is one where if it would consolidate or pull back just a little bit, upside 3-7, we would get a signal. It also has downside signal potential in it here as well. But considering its position and the volume that came in on this upside thrust, I suspect the algorithm would say that the consolidation risk is too high on a downside crossover. So I'd look at this and I say, okay, if there's a pullback, 3-7 upside, we'd probably have ourselves a nice little Boeing trade. But chances are slim that it happens, right here, right away. Then we have Alibaba, and this is one where, talk about a stock that's, pretty much gone nowhere this challenge. It's had a couple, strong moves, but they've always come off of either new lows or new highs. We did see it come off of a higher low right back here this month, but did not give a signal there on that. This is one where, we get that 3-7 crossover tomorrow. I would not be surprised to see a bullish signal here on Alibaba as soon as tomorrow. So kind of there with Apple. It's close, but not quite there. Bank of America almost has a 3-7 crossover today. In fact, it's very close to creating that action here. But again, it'd be coming off of lows. Yep, coming off of support levels. We've talked about this support level, and I think Bank of America is a great investment, but tough one to be a buyer of right here for the challenge, just due to a lack of signal there. Bristol Myers, this has been chopping up in this kind of upward move, so nowhere close to a bearish signal. We saw a few kind of hard sells where the downside 3-7 came in, but they did not trigger bearish here for Bristol. A lot of news swirling around that stock. Then Caterpillar. Caterpillar having a nice little bounce day. It's one of its better days here today. And, but again, still not breaking above yesterday's highs, which is very interesting. But, something coming off of new lows, almost no chance of triggering to the upside on the next move up. And so really chances of triggering this challenge are very slim there. Then we have Chipotle Mexican Grill. Nowhere close. It's been on a nice move. I talked about this one a little bit this morning, so I won't spend too much time on it. ConocoPhillips bouncing back a little with the energy names, but this is one that didn't trigger bearish on the last downside 3-7 crossover, and I kind of scratched my head as to why, and I thought that was odd because it didn't even trigger even if the algorithm wasn't tightened like it is right now. Okay. Basically, it didn't have a great shot of moving to average two ranges, and it hasn't. So we see it snapping on back. This is something where if it sets a higher low, could be bullish, but chances are we'll get a lower high before that. Now, CSX. This is one, when CSX reported earnings, we talked about it on that day. They said, look, this is one, we're probably not going to get a signal for the challenge anytime soon. This is one where we're going to see further selling after these earnings, and eventually it'll find a basing spot. And CSX has found a basing spot here, and it's a very interesting spot, and it's one where, as things go when they have this type of earnings, oftentimes we will see the stock climb back to where it was shortly after earnings. So with CSX, kind of looking around the 70 area there for it. I think there's a good shot that it gets there ahead of earnings if the market doesn't sell. Will it give us an upside trigger? I'm not as convinced there. Not as convinced that we will see one. We are coming off of equal lows, so there is the potential there, but we'll kind of have to see how that plays out. Chevron, kind of a similar boat to CSX, from a challenge trigger standpoint. We have seen the downside crossovers, but we haven't seen any bearish signals come in on it. I thought Friday we had a shot of getting a bearish signal, and I even priced out the options for the challenge, thinking, okay, we probably have it. And no trigger. And we've seen it just kind of snap on back slowly here the rest of this week. Delta, coming off of a new low, but it's not it's not one of these more major lows like we see with a Caterpillar or a Halliburton. So there is a chance that we see a trigger on the next 3-7 crossover to the upside there. I won't rule that one out. So potential, but 3D systems going off the watch list. Next challenge for the options. Disney, I talked about this one when I first got on. Has the chance to trigger here in 3 minutes. I highly doubt that it will, but does have that upside 3-7 cross. I would love to play Disney. I have priced out the options on it, but I'll only go and get those here in 3 minutes if it does trigger. But then EOG, and as we kind of go through what we've seen pretty much every chart type that is out there. Right, Facebook, this one, very similar to what we see with Disney, with what we see with Delta Airlines. So just kind of those same principles. We could get a trigger sometime soon there with that. FCX is in that Halliburton Caterpillar category. It's not going to trigger anytime soon. So as I go through the list and as I looked at every single stock here today, my take was very simple. We have about 10 to 15 stocks that could create a trigger here at any moment, which is a pretty normal number. With a watch list this size, that's about what I expect at any time. That we only have potential for about 10 to 15 to trigger. And if and when that happens, we'll go out and trade those and trade them pretty aggressively to finish off this current challenge. But until I get a trigger, I'll sit in cash and wait the chop out, and do so gladly, knowing that the risk factors out there are just really high, and also knowing where the VIX is and where some of the option values are. If we do get a call signal like on Disney, we're overpaying on that option by about 10%. Now, is that enough to keep me out? No, not at all. But it is something that is something that we have to keep in mind with it. All right. Thanks for hopping on. Let me double check here, Disney. 1 second. All right. Yep. No trigger there on Disney, so nothing to do there with it. But thanks for hopping on. Have yourselves a great evening. I'll be back on with you here tomorrow morning, and we'll talk to you then. Take care.